Our journey in search of potential success stretches across paddy fields, farms, plantations, and towns. Exploring into your hearts and sights. We hear, we observe, works a commitment rich in faith. We witness the mounting of crops and livestock in the masses, as far as the horizon. So we furnish this joyful privilege with continuous care and support to conserve its everlasting value with the coming generation. Every day is a brand new day, taking with rising hopes as life explores the open sea, where only the strong survives. And know they are appreciated, reaching safely to their destinations. No heights can be conquered without careful planning. Everything is mutually shared towards self-sustaining, which is why we are never far, until dreams and aspirations are fulfilled as we continue to listen, appreciate, and help you make that smooth transition. Paving the way to better living conditions, exposing enlightenment and perfection, where faith and knowledge progress in unison. It is when our efforts become your success, thus conclude to the greatest achievement.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in via our FB Live today. We have a very interesting topic to discuss, and together with us, we have two respected panelists who are going to share their thoughts on this topic. Well, I just want to begin our session today by saying that what a year 2020 was. Some people say that it was a weird year. Some people say that it's just a prequel to the real deal in 2021. Whatever it is, it has changed the course and norms on how we live our life after this, isn't it? Well, every now and then, the catastrophic outbreak does happen, but not many of those reach to the level of seriousness of COVID-19. Not only people are suffering from this tragedy, it gives a big hit to the economy as well, with countries imposing lockdowns and MCOs all around the world, causing severe economic impact on the global supply chain, stock markets and unemployment. Of course, there are many sectors badly affected by this pandemic, such as manufacturing, tourism, of course, a few others. As a countermeasure, the government has done a lot of fundamental things that could help cushion the impact via the various stimulus packages. And recently, we've seen signs that many businesses are reopening during the last quarter of 2020, and yet now we're in this second round of MCO, and uncertainty remains. It's becoming increasingly challenging to plan for the future. Consequently, many business owners and leaders might wonder how they can develop growth strategy for 2021. And to many of you out there who owns businesses, big or small, that is the storyline that you can see and feel so far, isn't it? The question now is that how do you react? How fast do you react? What are the key areas that you should focus on in order for you to stay afloat? Hence the topic today, which is blooming trend, business pivoting for entrepreneurs. We have two distinguished speakers with us today. But looking at the term pivot or pivoting itself, it gives a connotation that it's an act of looking for competitive advantages, especially during these challenging times. And typically, at this day and age, digitalization is a key enabler for any organization to pivot and move to an adjacent territory or maybe to an uncharted territory. Well, however, for certain industries which are highly regulated like banks and airlines, how do they do it? Those are large organizations. For these focus segment in Agrobank, which are the micros and the SMEs, how do they cope with it? So to answer those questions today, I can't wait to introduce you to two of our panelists who are going to discuss and share their thoughts on this subject. First up, I would like to introduce you to Ahmad Shahril Muhammad Sharif. He's the Chief Business Officer of Agrobank. Previously, he was the Chief Transformation of Agrobank as well. Ahmad Shahril, welcome to the show. Next, we have Irene Omar, who is the President of Airasia Digital and CEO of Redbeat Academy. She joined Airasia in 2006 and since then have been playing an instrumental role in transforming Airasia Group into global cloud and data-driven company. Irene, great to have you with us today.
Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me today.
Well, everyone, the stage is set. Panelists are ready, so let's begin the session. For those who are interested to ask questions, please do so by placing your questions in the chat session of our Facebook page. Well, Ahmad Shahril, let's start with you. Look, you see, micro and SMEs are segments that are very dear to us in Agrobank, isn't it? It's in our DNA to support and uplift this particular segment. Agrobank, together with the government, has opened up avenues to help support these segments. But the question is, if you put ourselves in the business owner's shoes, right? How do you break down the strategies, the pivoting strategies for the micros and the SMEs, especially those within the agriculture sector?
Yeah, thank you, Lokman, for the questions. I think regardless whether you are micro or whether you are SMEs, small, medium, or big SMEs, or even corporate to the extent, I think the impact of COVID-19 pandemic has been very widespread, affecting everyone. It changed the way we do things, the way business do things, as well as it also changed our lifestyles, right? We used to hear when people sneeze, then we immediately hear somebody who say bless you. But nowadays, when people sneeze, then you hear, oh my God, right? Then you were like, what's happening? Oh, just someone sneeze. So it changed almost everything, the norms. That's why we've been hearing a lot of the new norms. But again, coming back to the entrepreneurs, I think regardless the size of the businesses, the substance, the principle remain the same. Right? As entrepreneurs, they have to be very agile in order for them to adapt to the changing circumstances. It's very dynamic now. In 1 month, you probably can do certain things, and next month you can't do anything, that thing any longer. The things are changing in very fluid, very dynamic, and these changes come in various aspects. To businesses, to entrepreneurs. Change in terms of the customer's demands, change in terms of customer preference, in terms of how you source your raw material, your supplies, change the way you offer product, and change the way you use technology. I think we are moving from the conventional ways to a more advanced kind of platform nowadays. And all these changes affect I would like to put into three simple category. One, the changes affect one in terms of the way how business operate, the operational part of it. Secondly, with regards to how you manage your financial. And thirdly, in terms of product offering. So now we talk about the operations, the financial, as well as product offering. And all these three aspects have a direct impact to your cost and revenue, right? So this is why, as you mentioned just now, I think entrepreneurs, regardless of the size of business that they are in, they have to start to think of some would term it as contingency planning, but to me, it's more of scenario-based planning. So if one scenario happens, how you respond to it, right? If another scenario happen, you at least knows how to react to it. So it's no longer like before. You can stick to just one plan and try to realize every single things that you have identified in that plan in order to push forward your business. But nowadays, because of the dynamic changes due to the pandemic, things are moving very fluid. You have to have the scenario-based plan in place for your business, regardless of sizes. Right? And we talk about operations. You see, those days, it depends on where you are in the value chain. Right? If you are at the primary, I'm talking about the agriculture sector as well as food production. If you are at the primary side, I mean, you are at the farming side, rearing or breeding, you know, the way your operations be affected by the pandemic is different from those down the value chain, perhaps at the processing or manufacturing or distribution side. I take an example like one of our customers, you know, farming chili, right? But because of the pandemic, they were unable to actually get the chili to the market. Right, and we those days at the early stage of the pandemic, we heard in the news that you know a lot of agriculture produce being dumped, you know, in certain areas. But this particular customer, they actually turn it into something that can last longer. They process it, right? So now your product take a dynamic turn, total turn from a supply of fresh chilies to a processed chili, which can last longer. We have a longer shelf life, which also attract higher value. So this is how quickly they can adapt to the situation, reducing the cost, increasing the revenue. So this is coming back to how you swiftly change to adapt. And the way you plan on how you source for your raw material will therefore will go along the scenario that you predict or rather can you think can happen. For example, if previously you rely on one single supplier, nowadays you have to diversify. You have to know your supplier now, whether your supplier will also have dependency on single logistic company, or your supplier have various mode of transporting goods to you, because this become critical for you to make sure in your scenario planning you have consistent supply to produce. Right? It's like banks. When we do relationship with customers, one aspect that we have to assess is know your customers. Right? And now similarly to all businesses, you have to know your suppliers and you have to know your buyers. If you produce something in bulk, for example, if all this while you've been depending on single buyer as an off-taker, but now you have to diversify to make sure that if anything happen, even if your one or two buyers affected, you still have the third and fourth one to continue your business. So it's very important now for all businesses to start to understand who your suppliers and who are your buyers, and start to diversify to make sure that if anything happen, not all buyers or all suppliers affected in the same way, which may disrupt your business operations. It applies to automotive industry where you have vendor development. So certain parts are dependent upon single vendor. But if that particular vendor being affected by COVID-19 and has to shut down, then technically it will affect your entire operations, right? So that is from operations point of view. But second one will be with regards to the financial. So financial is all about cash flow. Be it micro, be it SMEs, be it corporate. When it comes to business, it's all about cash flow. How you build your cash flow. You can have a very sound business model, but at the end of the day, if the cash flow cannot support, you won't be able to sustain. Right? And this cash flow is very important because this is where you actually put up the scenario planning, various cash flow scenario in order for you to meet two things. One, in terms of your capex or other capital expenditure and opex requirement for you to continue the business operations. And secondly, with regards to your financial obligations, right? And there are many ways to plan for these two aspects of cash flow, which is the capex, opex, as well as the financial obligations. I think now it's time for entrepreneurs to focus more on spending for capex for those that can generate quick income, right? And reasonable for the size of operation that they have. Similarly for OPEX, I think what are the aspects of the OPEX that can be reduced further to actually minimize the cost and at the same time ensure the sustain the entire operation of or rather the production line. On the other hand, for the financial obligation, if you look throughout the many months that we went through during the pandemic, there's a lot of assistance, facilitative fund that being offered by the government, by the central bank, or even the bank itself. And there's a lot of assistance with regards to rescheduling or restructuring the existing facilities. So this is where entrepreneurs, owners have to look into seriously, to plan ahead, move forward, to revive back the business to where it were before, by relooking at this financial obligation and come to talk to the bank. I think as far as the bank is concerned, I can speak on behalf of Agrobank. We are committed to actually ensuring that our customers' businesses will remain in operations and able to sustain in the long run. And the last piece of things that I would like to touch is on the product offering. I think this is very interesting to me because we can see how creative, how innovative entrepreneurs in the market, pushing through their own products, making the swift change in terms of their product offering, the platform that they use. I would like to share one of our customers who actually originally producing corn, feed corn for animal feed. But during the MCO, instead of selling corn, this particular guy sold cattle. Because there's a problem with regards to transportation or logistics. They cannot sell out the corn. So they bring in the cattle and feed on the corn. They sell cattle. Because and also at the same time, it was during the Hajj period, Raya Haji. So I think they make a lot of money. And so now, livestock become their diversified businesses, generating new revenue stream to the business. So this is how they turn difficulties or challenges into opportunities, right? And all this won't happen if entrepreneurs don't start with scenario-based planning. I think this is critical nowadays for all our entrepreneurs to lay out the possible scenarios that could happen and to have a plan for each scenario. I think, and with that, I think you will be able to see our SMEs, our micro businesses, or even the big ones to actually survive and start to gain momentum to get back to the level before pandemic.
Right, interesting. So I think from your point of view earlier, you mentioned the words dynamic, being innovative quite a lot, quite a number of times. So I think those are the key words that we should be looking at when we're discussing about this topic. So now moving on to Irene. Irene, well, Airasia is known for its ability to do continuous transformation, responding to the market very, very reactively or proactively, you know. But from your point of view, in general, how has pivoting changed our entrepreneurship landscape in Malaysia in the past 5 years? And maybe you can share from the eyes of Irene Omar or Airasia itself. How did Asia cope with all these adversities? What more during pandemic era, and how will it help traditional businesses?
Okay. I believe when you mentioned pivoting is in relation to pivoting towards digital economy or e-commerce and so forth. So maybe what I can explain in terms of how Airasia is managing this pandemic and what we have been doing and how we have to work fast to change the way we operate and the kind of products that we offer, exactly what Encik Ahmad Shahril actually mentioned as well. And the areas in terms of financials that's really important right now is just purely cash flow. How do we make sure on a month-to-month basis our cash flow is positive all the time? So that means it's a completely change of the way we work. So I think in comparison to other companies of our size and the kind of business that we're doing, which is aviation, we were actually quite fortunate to realize the potential of what Airasia could be. So even before this pandemic happened, we were embarking on a digital transformation journey. So we were realizing how important data is to our business. We have a wealth of data that we felt has become a huge asset to us. And it's bigger asset that we feel of greater value that it can be more than our physical asset, which is the aircraft basically. So this whole journey actually started more than 3 years ago, where we saw how can we ingest or pull all this data coming from various systems, because they were all in various siloed systems. And how do we put them into a foundry and be able to visualize that data better and know what we can do and understand it better? And how do we make sure that this data, we work them even more? So we saw 3 things that we could see. How do we use the data to improve our revenue base, improve conversion rate, see where are the other revenue areas that could complement the airline business, and maybe that new businesses can grow faster and become bigger than the airline. Secondly is how do we use data to improve the efficiency of how we operate in terms of costs and in terms of productivity. So basically, when we actually do our rostering or our operations and making sure that we meet that 25 minutes turnaround time, or in terms of fuel consumption, how can we reduce that fuel consumption even more now that we have more accurate data across all stakeholders that helps operate that aircraft movements and so forth. And then the thirdly is how do we use that data to provide a seamless or frictionless experience for our own consumer from the moment they book until they return, and also for our own workforce, so that it's a frictionless experience for them and so forth. So when we actually realized this thing, we decided that it all starts from the data for our whole digital transformation. And how do we evolve around those? So this is where we started creating new businesses. where we spun off some businesses from our own department, like our cargo department is now a logistic company where we felt it can be bigger than just moving goods and managing the belly space of the aircraft. So we make use of the network that we have, the market reach that we have in the region, the brand that we have, the business partners that we have. How do we mobilize those goods, not only using our own aircraft, but also other airlines' aircraft as well? And with the e-commerce boom, how do we help with the last mile delivery of this whole thing? Because we fly the goods, we need to get those goods to the businesses or to the individuals and so forth. So we started expanding where we feel we can work those assets more and get better returns. And at the same thing with what we did with our platform, which is initially is meant to fly people from one point to another point. So basically people just use Airasia.com to buy plane tickets. And we felt that with the huge traffic going into our app and our website, of course, this is before COVID, how do we make use of this traffic so that people will visit us more frequently as opposed to only when they just want to fly? And on average, people fly 4 times a year. So how do we make them visit us more? And what can we offer them so that there is more transaction than just flights? And this is where we started selling other airlines' flights. We started selling hotels and travel itineraries. And when we saw that we reach out to so many destinations and cities and towns in the region, we can offer localized services as well, in the sense of, okay, when you go into Bali, this is what you can do. This is what, the best restaurants would be, what the locals do and so forth. And even locals will be able to use it. So the idea was that to create a lifestyle and travel platform. But when the pandemic hits and we can't travel and our aircraft are on ground, we needed to pivot that even faster. And we needed to change our roadmap, where we were thinking of having Airasia.com becoming an online travel agent and then becoming a super app. But now we need to reduce that timeline into 9 months and make it a super app immediately, because there's no point selling hotels or travel itinerary and so forth. So what is the most immediate need that we need to do? We need to deliver food, groceries, basic necessities, medicine, supplements. So we decided to reach out to all our contacts and help them. And then this all started in April last year. And because after we had to lock down and we cannot fly, we had to relook at our financials. Where is the fixed cost? Where is the variable cost? What can we do more with the fixed cost to reduce it and so forth? How can we repurpose our assets so that, we can continue to earn revenue, and it's not just repurposing the network or the data or whatever, the repurposing our own people as well. How can we help pilots to do other things, or our aircraft engineers to do other things, or cabin crew to do other things and so forth? And that's where we really developed that super app and make sure that we focus on the things that really matters right now, which is food delivery, fresh, which is groceries, and also which is shopping as like a retail. It was meant to be for duty free and travel retail, but we quickly shifted to basic necessities and whatever that you need on your day-to-day basis, on a lifestyle basis as well. So that's how we pivoted, and we saw that the SMEs were struggling. So back in April last year, we launched Save Our Shop campaign, SOS. This is really to help the SMEs who were traditionally brick and mortar business. And we felt that since we serve the community with Airasia fairs and whatever that we do, SMEs plays an integral role in our whole ecosystem. So we thought that why not put them on our platform? At that time, it was called Our Shop. Now it's renamed to Airasia Shop. So we open up to the public and the SMEs. I think there were about 1,000 that signed up within the first few days. And now we have thousands of them as well. So we allow them to put them into our platform. And then the delivery will be from Teleport, our logistic company, and so forth. So that's how we saw the opportunity and how we need to save the community and so forth. At the same time, we have farmers and fishermen who came up to us and said that they need to offload tonnage of their produce and goods because they don't sell in kilograms, or else the one that we were selling in Airasia fresh or so were all in, smaller bundles in kilograms or so, and they needed to offload tonnage of those. So how do we do that? So this is where we decided, okay, we need to do something about this. How can we make use of the platform and the reach that we have to help the farmers and the fishermen? And we worked with Ministry of Agriculture on this, where they gave us a list of farmers and fishermen and so forth, and see how can we match them with the merchants that we have on our platform first as a start. So hence we launched our farm. So our farm was established in July last year. The main purpose was to match, that's the start. And then we got more merchants signing in, and then more farmers were signing in. So right now we're trying to help them. The basic problem that they're facing is to widen the distribution channel and to make sure they're able to get most of the revenues coming from their sale, as opposed to going through so many middlemen and so forth, right? And this is how we're trying to develop and build the business for our farm and Santan as well. So that's what we're looking at in terms of pivoting. It's not very, it's actually, it's very challenging. I mean, I agree with Ahmad Shahril in the sense that we have to relook at everything. Some of the projects that we have to review them. Forget about having long-term projects. Now is survival mode. So we need to look at projects that earns revenue the most. At the end of the day, we don't want to be retrenching our staff and that kind of thing, right? We should be thinking of how do we earn something and help the economy in a way that we can. And at the same time, from there, you will be surprised to see how many opportunities that opens up to you. Like, for instance, the small, medium enterprise that we put on our platform, we realize that they have very few experience in e-commerce. They don't understand how to work in that kind of environment, or they have to change the way they operate, right? They have to understand what digital marketing is all about. They now know there are a lot of tools out there, tech tools that are free that they should be using to help with their business operations. So when we realize that a lot of these SMEs are struggling in embracing the digital economy, we decided to work with our business partner, and this is how we leverage our business partner, which is Google, who we work closely with in building all the tech that we need in order for us to be a travel and tech company. So we created this co-curriculum called Bina Digital. So this is where we encourage them to sign up, and it's a very nominal fee. At that time when we launched it, it was about less than 100 ringgit. It was about 20 ringgit, I think. And then now we expanded or so. So it's just to get everybody to understand the basics of how it is to survive the e-commerce business, because we want them to be for the long term and not just only for this period and then they leave, right? Because at the end of the day, things are going to change permanently in the way we do things, whether the way we work, that's definitely going to change, and then the way we do our business and the way we reach out to suppliers and distribution and the way we reach out to the market. Now it's just direct between you and the market. So they need to learn how to do all these things. And talking about pivoting, you cannot forget your own stakeholders, which is your own staff, right? How do you change and pivot that mindset? to say, whatever that you did before, it was great, it was fantastic, but now things have changed. You need to change too, because otherwise you'll be left behind and will become completely irrelevant. So when we were doing our digital transformation journey and stuff like that, even before the pandemic, we needed a lot of good tech skills, good tech talent. But we realized that in this part of the world, there is a huge shortage of tech talent. So as a result, in getting that tech talent for us to be able to achieve our digital goals, we needed to hire people overseas or abroad. And we have to keep pinching people from various companies and so forth. And we felt that this is not going to be sustainable and it's going to be very costly. So how do we build a talent pipeline locally to meet with the needs and to be able to embrace the digital economy, or the Industrial Revolution 4.0, as most people call it? And we felt like, hey, we could build a pipeline for pilots when we were as a low-cost carrier, because we felt that we didn't want to be subjected to global shortage of pilots. So we'll build our own pipeline of pilots, where we started from cadets, and then they become first officer, and then they become captains, hub captains, management pilots. So they have a whole career ahead of them. So why can't we do that with tech? So the whole idea of this, we decided that we needed a tech academy to help her with our own ambitions. Firstly, how do we upscale our existing tech team? Secondly, how do we reskill the non-tech stuff? Because when we do more AI or machine learning work, we know there will be many people that will be redeployed. And as the responsible employer, how do we help them be part of this digital transformation? How do we help them to equip themselves with the relevant digital skills, and so that they can be part of the digital economy? So even if we may not have the vacancy enough for all of them, at least they will be able to find work outside. So hence, we have this tech academy that has been reskilling people. And we launched this internally first for our own staff. And it was launched a week before the first lockdown last year. Over 1,000 people just signed up, and I was quite surprised on how they were just embracing it, and they were not afraid of embracing it. So we have cabin crew, baggage handlers, pilots, aircraft engineers, ground handlers, all signing up for this tech digital fundamentals courses. Half of them completed it and had a certification. And out of that, about close to 300 people sign up to a specialized session, meaning they can choose to specialize in data analyst, or become software engineer, or cyber information security officer, or product UI UX, or digital marketing, or even cloud infrastructure specialist, right? So there's a specialized track that they can choose after they have completed their digital transformation. And then the first batch of digital marketing is graduating very soon. And they're getting 100% placement across the whole group that we're building. And it's very interesting to see. We have a baggage handler who is so passionate about becoming a data analyst. We have pilots who is training to be software developers. I've got one pilot who's in cyber security and another one in data analyst. Aircraft engineers who are looking at digital marketing. So everyone is pivoting in their own way to embrace what's relevant and what gives them a better return, not just for their own individual self, but also how they can contribute to the digital economy. So that has been our experience. And it's not easy, I can tell you. It's a complete mindset change to mobilize people to move from whatever that they were doing before, which is purely airline, into all these businesses. The thing is, we have these businesses already in place that was at its infant stage before the pandemic. But when the pandemic happens, we just have to speed up the whole roadmap, the whole growth. And although we have our plans and so forth, but really with so much uncertainty right now, everyone is working on a rolling forecast, because it's really important for you to be able to make sure that we're always cash flow positive every month or so.
Wow, amazing journey there. I'm sure many people inspired by listening to your story, Irene. I think few things I can capture from what you mentioned earlier was basically the smart usage of data that you've gathered all these years, right, into something that's really useful for you. And secondly, I'm amazed by the speed that you transform things around, right? I think managing big organization like that and try and turn things around within that amount of time, I think that's pretty amazing. And of course, I think you go down to the detail of the looking after your employees. How do you reskill these people? Those are very critical points. I think those are important points as well for any organizations, be it big or small. I think yeah. Thanks, Irene. I'm gonna move on to Shahril now. Shahril, from Agrobank perspective, right? Like we discussed earlier, you gave lots of salient points there in supporting the SMEs, but as a bank now, so maybe perhaps it's useful for you to share with our viewers what are the what are our approaches in developing the agriculture community and driving the economic growth through financial support in augmenting the new business model, especially during these difficult times?
Yeah, I think as a bank, more or less what we have been doing, almost similar like what Irene has mentioned just now. I think in terms of assisting the public, the customers, and also transmitting all the initiative and mechanism and initiative being rolled out by the government. Agrobank, just that in 2019, we have changed our vision. We changed our vision to advancing agriculture beyond banking. So it's already an intent for Agrobank to move away from conventional banking to something new beyond banking. And this vision goes well with what we're experiencing now. I think as far as providing financial services to customers, it goes beyond financing. You cut across all aspects of development. Being a development financial institution, Agrobank itself has a mandate to actually assist or promote development of agriculture sector in Malaysia. And this is where we change our vision in supporting the development of agriculture sector in Malaysia beyond just doing banking business. Okay. So for our customers in during this difficult period, Agrobank, being a DFI bank, remain committed to assist in many ways in order to ensure that our customers remain in business, and secondly, the development of agriculture sector continue to progress. So as far as the bank is concerned, we categorize our assistance into three actually. One in terms of financial assistance, secondly in terms of advisory services that we offer to all our customers, and thirdly with regards to our development program. Okay, let me just touch on financial aspect. When it comes to financial assistance, it comes in two ways. In terms of relief packages, and secondly, in terms of new funding requirement. As we all know now, a lot of businesses facing tight cash flow. This is the most challenging aspect of problems that they are facing right now. And we stand ready to actually assist the public as well as our customers in specific with regards to how we can ease the burden that they are facing in order for them to revive back the business and get back to the level where they were at before the pandemic. If you can go back a few months ago, a number of initiatives being announced either by Agrobank or by the government or by the central banks. We have a number of fund initiative, facilitative fund offered to the public, especially for the micros and SMEs, in order for them to actually use the fund for the purpose of continuing with the business that they are in. A lot of funds being rolled out. We have special relief funds. We have Dana Penjana. We have also now currently ongoing is the targeted relief and targeted relief fund TRF rolled out by Bank Negara, and we as Agrobank also transmitting that initiative to the public. So these are the funds allocated by the government and central banks to assist all the micro entrepreneurs as well as SMEs entrepreneurs for them to actually sustain their business. But in addition to funds, we also offer rescheduling and restructuring package, because I spoke about managing cash flow of the business. It's very important. Even Irene has mentioned several times, it's very important for them to actually maintain a positive cash flow, not in the long run or the midterm, but on monthly basis. How can a business sustain a positive cash flow on a monthly basis? So this is where Agrobank as DFI, we are very committed in assisting the customer in rescheduling and restructure the facility with us. Right? And also, like I mentioned before, what the customer needs to do is to have their own plan, where those plans will translate into a cash flow projections, and hence the bank will be able to see to what extent the customers, through the plan that they have in place, can generate sufficient cash flow to service the financial the financing facility with us. This is very important, because otherwise, whatever that we do will end up become a failure. If we simply reschedule from 3 years to 5 years, reducing the installment from 1,000 to 500 ringgit, by the end of the day, the cash flow doesn't even support for 500 ringgit a month, you technically plan to fail. Right? So this is where Agrobank would actually assist our customer to ease out the cash flow burden that they are facing during this difficult period. And that's what we offered. Just to summarize a bit again, in terms of new funds, as well as in terms of how we reschedule and restructure the funds. And secondly, we also provide advisory services to our customers. Right? And this is where we play the role of advising the micro as well as the SMEs entrepreneurs in terms of how to revive the business, in terms of how to actually use digital platform, in terms of how best to manage the cash flows of the companies. So through our Center of Excellence located in Abadi, in Bangi, we offer these advisory services to all our customers. Because I think, like Irene mentioned, the digital gap in agriculture sector and food production is wider than other sectors. So we're talking about farmers, we're talking about fishermen, we're talking about distributor who actually residing in the semi-urban or even rural area. So the digital gap is wider there. So we need to find ways on how to narrow down this gap among the players in the agriculture and food sector. So that's why I think through our COE, Center of Excellence, we offer this kind of services to our customers. And Alhamdulillah, I think a number of our customers have moved into a digital platform. And those days you don't see people from rural area in Sabah or even in Kelantan or Terengganu or even in Selangor itself going online to sell agriculture produce. The daily catch goes online, fresh. And also how they make use of the social media to actually promote their own products in the market. It's still a long journey, but at least the sector itself, the agriculture and food sector industry, move towards the right direction. Just a matter of how we can expedite the transformation in the industry. This is a question that I think the government, the bank, as well as the relevant agencies to sit down and think of the best way to expedite the transformation of the sector using more digital. Because the connectivity is one of the critical or rather one of the key concerns that we are facing to transform certain areas at the rural space. The issue always on the connectivity, right? While the desire to move into digital is there, but the infra still require a lot of improvement for them to actually, like Irene mentioned, cut off the middleman, go straight to their buyer, right? Through our advisory, we assist our customer on how to actually move into this new ways of doing business, new digital platform in terms of reach out to the market. And thirdly, also we do. Sorry, before we move into the development under the advisory, we also do provide business matching. Because Agrobank present is very vast along the value chain. We are at the primary, we are at the midstream, we are also at the downstream. We know who are the players in each segment. Right? We have a good network with the producer. We have the good network with the collectors, transporters. We have a good network with the distributors. We have a good network with manufacturing end, as well as down to the Affandy and exporters. So how do we use our strength, having present in all parts of the value chain, is that we match make this player with one to another. For example, if they are producing, they are at the primary end, they probably having problem in terms of how they sell in bulk. Given that now the usual buyer unable to purchase from them, so that this is where we play our role to match make with the manufacturer who require consistent supply in bulk. I think exactly like Airasia is doing right now, intimidating the producer and the buyer, and we do offer the same advisory services to our customer, in that sense. And even put them together, and plan for the future. Some people, some of our customers have certain type of resources, for example, land, right? But wouldn't know what to do with the land. So we also have a exporter or seller or distributor who sell, for example, chili, right? So instead of the exporter come to see us and asking millions of financing to buy land and start producing, so we asked the distributor, look, what do you need? Do you need to you need land or you need chili? Oh, actually, we need chili because we need to supply in a bulk quantity to certain countries or to certain manufacturer. So if you need chili, we don't we don't give you millions of financing, but rather match you up with people who has land, right? But available land that can be used to produce chili. So this is where we play our role. Instead of putting the other guy into high debts, high leverage, financing the land purchase and the plantation, we match them with the people already with land, and all we need to do is to finance the development of the land. So it's cheaper, but meets the end goal of both parties. One needs chilies, the other one needs to produce or generate income from the land that they own. So this is where we play our role, matchmake people with resources, but with different needs in terms of business needs. And so far we have do that for many players, and one player, you know, we have facilitated one single player up to 700, 800 acres of production without even financing them for land purchase. Right? And this is workable, and this is where I think as Agrobank playing the mandate of developing the agriculture sector, intimidating between the different parties with different type of resources. And thirdly, when it comes to development, this is also we have been actively been doing, not only during the pandemic, even before pandemic. But it become more imminent or more important during the pandemic to cater for the needy, especially those that has been retrenched or out of job, unemployed. You know, I think how do we cater for this segment? So this is where Agrobank roll out several programs that give opportunities for those people who has a passion and interest to venture into agriculture, making them as a new way of living. To earn income, you know, and we do this in collaboration with states, with government agencies. I think you've seen the one we have done with Petronas and upcoming with Felda, with Sarawak, with Pahang, with Johor. How we roll out. Design a program for the purpose of developing the B40 as well as people that have interest, unemployed, to venture into agriculture. And this kind of program has a better rate of success because it's a design to work, where we choose players who are already a successful player as the anchor, who has the capacity to provide technical support and has this capacity to provide offtake of the produce. So and if because these are the anchors that we choose ourselves, and the anchors came from our own customers that we have experienced for many years and has been proven successful in their respective field. And this is one way of how Agrobank actually provide opportunities for people out there who like to make a new ways of earn for a living, venture into agriculture.
Oh, thank you so much, Shahril. I think that's a very elaborated points you gave there in terms of the support that we give to our customers during these difficult times. I think something that we should share a bit more with our customers. I think our customers should also take this opportunity to tap into these avenues that Agrobank and also the government has given during this difficult time. Maybe my final question today to Irene. Irene, earlier we talked about how COVID has affected the economy, and because of that, the consumer spending decreasing, supply chains disrupted, and many other concerns, growing concerns by the Malaysians, right? So the challenge now is that for the employers, right? For the employers to keep up with the cost efficiency, right? But in order for us to maintain reasonable welfare to the employees. So the question now is that what is the biggest necessity for you in taking pivot move considering the pandemic that hits our economy? Of course, digitalization is that on top of the agenda, but what are the other big necessities you can think of?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand what triggers that pivot, right? Okay, so I mean, there's the environment situation that triggers it, which is of course the pandemic. That actually means that we just really need to speed. We have already that idea what we needed to do, but we just need to speed it up, basically. But this whole idea of us moving into tech came about more than 3 years ago. And that idea came because we felt that all these assets that we have built as a low-cost airline, and the biggest one in Asia as well, how do we make use of it and work it even more? So what are those assets? Firstly is the network that we have built. We have a huge reach. Our network is across all sorts of cities and towns, tertiary cities as well in the region, and also in many places in Asia in general. How do we make use of that reach and see how we can work even more and more revenue or so, right? Then of course is our the traffic that we have, the database that we have, which is over 600 million people in our database. How can we make that work even more rather than just for them to focus on just flying them from one point to another point? And then the brand, the market reach that we have. And the most important thing is the people that we have. How do we turn them into something that will provide better contribution to the company as well as to the community and the economy as a whole also. So when it comes to that pivoting, even when it comes to when we first do our own digital transformation, the mindset is very important. The mindset change is probably the most difficult thing to do in any organization. And I think when we first started this whole thing, 90% of my time is trying to convince everyone down the line, right? From my direct supervisors to the people underneath them and so forth, and right down to the baggage handlers and that kind of thing. And I think in order to do this, a communication effort is really probably the utmost important, because people need to understand what is this all about and how can they play a role, and what does it mean if they don't play a role? What does it mean to them and the company first, and then to them basically. So that education part is a lot of effort. But I think with what happened with the lockdown and everything forces people to rethink. So it speed up that wanting to understand and wanting to see what they can do and so forth, right? So for us, when we mobilize the people, or when we pivot, or when we spin off the department and make it into an entity, like how the commercial department has become an entity in itself to build Airasia super app, and how the cargo department has been spun off to build a logistic business. And I think it's explaining or making them understand what this business can be and how they can play a role in it, and they're being part of building that business. It's sort of like a natural mindset change already, right? Because this is something more interesting and exciting than it was before. Because before it was just, okay, we fly from one point to another, we turn around the plane, we need to make sure that we turn around between 25 minutes, make sure everyone's on time, make sure we don't mess up the operations, and that's it really. Here it's like, okay, how can we build this into something bigger than just what we're helping and so forth. So mindset is actually quite key. Secondly is, we need to be focused. Sometimes when we do things and we want to pivot into something and people think, oh, this is so exciting, we're evolving into something else. And there will be so many different ideas coming out, and there will be this whole brainstorming session, and people want to do everything, right? At the end of the day, let's just figure out why do we exist in the first place? Why does this company exist in the first place? What's the most important thing that we need to do that will make us sustainable in the long term, in a very long time? It's not just like feeding off the fad or whatever current demand might be. So it has to be targeted and focused and prioritize things that can give you good returns, like I mentioned before, as opposed to trying to do everything. Because chances are you will fail in everything because there's only so much time and limited resources that you have. And so we just need to be smart about knowing how to use the resources that we have. At the same time, you cannot do this alone. Even us, Airasia, we can't do this alone. It's tough, right? And you see, digitalization or pivoting into e-commerce is meant for everyone. It's not just meant for the big companies. Small companies also need to do so, right? So there are, you need to, if you need to seek help, because there's a lot of support out there in that the government has recognized that, the economy and the players need help. So hence the many penjanas that there is. There are the Permai also, right? And then Agrobank is providing many initiatives as well. So so this is something that we need not be shy about. And this is offered a lot to SMEs and also micro entrepreneurs. So it's something that needs to be taken advantage of or so. So for me, I think it all starts with the mindset first. Mindset like, oh, it's not, pivot is only just meant for corporates. No, it's
everyone.
Yes, even the farmers can pivot, right? And then hopefully soon they will be able to match their merchants, whoever that they're supplying, using their mobile phone, because we're building something like Tinder. Tinder is I don't know about what this Tinder is, but it's a dating thing that you match people up. So you're matching the suppliers with the merchants, and then just with a certain swipe, because we build all the algorithm. And so we hope to launch that soon, right? So like what Shahril was saying, the rural areas, is hardly any connectivity. It's hard to do e-commerce business or so, but maybe we could start with what we can do with mobile phones first, and so forth. So it's having that open mind and having and feeling that you also have that right to be part of that change. And make sure that you're just focused in building something and not try to do everything or so. And it's a team effort to build this. You're not on your own or by yourself. There are help out there that you can take advantage of.
Amazing pointers, Irene. I think those are the sound advices that you're giving to the people who's listening, tuning in now. I think let's go to the some of the questions we have on our Facebook page. I think let me summarize these questions for me to share it with the panelists. Maybe first of all, maybe one of the questions I would like to ask Shahril. One of the questions here asking about how would agriculture-based bank like Agrobank evaluates a new business model that appears to be out of the core activities of the company. for instance, agri-based company pivoting to non-agri-based, right? So how do we? This is a new thing, even for Agrobank, isn't it? To evaluate new stuff. So what's your take on this one?
No, in fact, it is a trend now. Businesses in different industry now moving into agriculture, because I think if you look at the economic forecast, even the not only from the local but also international, who predicts that the recovery for agriculture and food sector will be much more faster than the rest. And I think now that's why I think it become a trend, because regardless in what economic conditions that you are in, you still need to eat. The only difference is the culinary part. For those days when economic boom, you spend 35 ringgit for nasi ayam in hotels or in the fine dining restaurants. But during economic downturn, you still eat nasi ayam at 5 ringgit. But no longer at Affandy, but at the warung or even at the restaurant, the normal restaurant. But so it's still nasi ayam. You still need the rice, you still need the chicken. I think the food demand will remain, and we have also studied in terms of correlation between agriculture and economic growth. There is no close correlation, because simply for the fact that regardless the situation, people needs to eat. And because of this, and it's proven during the pandemic, the demand for food remained, and that's why we see a lot of key players in different industry moving into agriculture business, especially that relates to food, because I think in agriculture we do have food and non-food, especially on the commodity side. But the shift very much into the food sector, because during the pandemic we see several challenges in terms of food supply locally, and I think this is where the issue of national food security become one of the core aspect that government are looking at even now, and I think they have a special task force looking into it. Then how do we improve our national food security? It's through local production. And for Agrobank, and given the mandate that we have, being DFI in supporting the agriculture development, we stand ready to actually assessing and collaborate with all these new players to further spur the growth in development in the agriculture sector. And of course, I think when it comes to agriculture, the evaluation will be it's like a normal business proposition to any banks. But of course, in this agriculture, the added element that we usually look at when it comes to new business, new agriculture business, is about the technical expertise. Technical the farming require a lot of technical knowledge, especially we are talking about the high risk sector. You can put everything in place to mitigate any potential risk, but suddenly there's flood. This is a natural disaster, act of God. It's something that will be very difficult. Even the disease attack the plantation will be also a natural disaster. That's why I think most important when it comes to agriculture is the technical expertise. And this is where we play our role in matching them. They probably have the capacity, the resources to venture into agriculture, but lack of expertise. So Agrobank will play the role of guiding them to the right people, group of people, in order to make sure that before they venture into the new business, they have all the competency required to make sure the new venture will be successful ones.
All right. I think thanks, Shahril, for that feedback. I think let's take another question. This one, I think, is just a question that's going to be addressed to Irene. John Lim here asked a question about this. It's a very lengthy question here, but I'm interested to ask Irene about this one particular point here from John Lim. He mentioned about the internal communication, removing the barriers in the internal communication. We want to disseminate the message about, you mentioned just now about the mindset change and whatnot. How do you, it's a big organization, right? So Airasia is a huge organization. How do you do this?
Yeah, it's certainly not an easy feat.
Exactly.
And even before all this pandemic or whatever that we need to do, we have always been exploring what is the right communication tool that is collaborative to all the workforce in the region, right? Because although our headquarters here is Malaysia, we still need to communicate with the people that we have in Thailand, in Indonesia, in Philippines, in China, and that kind of thing. So we've been experimenting with so many types of collaborative tools in order to do this, and we ended up with Facebook Workplace. And that's how everybody communicate, and everybody, so we do a lot of things using that tool, Facebook Live, whenever Tony has a town hall or I have a town hall or something, or whenever we launch something, we make sure we also put it in our internal communication and that kind of thing. So essentially, when we were doing our digital transformation or what we needed to do, we used that as a platform tool to communicate with everyone. Like, so for instance, suddenly we need more drivers at Teleport, and then we have this more drivers needed campaign. Who can sign up, especially during this lockdown, when there'll be a lot of deliveries for food and for all the fresh produce and goods that we're selling. And also, that's the best way, basically. Of course, we will say, okay, meet where and where for you to sign up for something, like how cabin crew would want to sign up to be a sales distributor or that kind of thing. So we search really hard to find that best internal communication tools. Emails, of course, doesn't work. And WhatsApp is not safe too, because what if people leave, right? And you have a huge 20,000 people, that you need to communicate. So Workplace was the best. But in our quest of doing this and digitizing and embracing this, we also been working with a startup company that has been building on office productivity. So who knows, they could be replaced. We could replace Facebook using them because, we could do a lot of things, video calls, collaborative work, as in like while you work on that project, you can be in that group chat to work on that while presenting and that kind of thing. So it's actually very important. A lot of people probably overlook this, but internal communication is the most important thing to get your buy-in in your own workforce. And you really need to spend time on what's the most effective and the most cost-efficient way to improve productivity and communication.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know what, it's a nightmare though, for you to manage an organization that big, and having a breakdown in communication internally won't be great, right? So
Yeah.
I think you're still experimenting, right?
Correct. We will never say we are 100% there. There's always room for improvement.
Well, I think we have come to the end of the show. Thanks to Shahril, Irene, for sharing your thoughts with all the viewers. I'm sure there are plenty of takeaways for all of us here. If I can do a quick recap from our conversation earlier, Shahril, you mentioned about the importance of being dynamic and innovative in terms of your financial, operational, and as well as product offering. Irene, you shared how Asia deal with the adversities and how do you react with that. I can say it's a speed of light into the adversities in the market via digitalization, especially, and finally you shared about the challenges in disseminating information internally. And these are all great points raised by our panelists. Well, I thank you again, Shahril and Aireen, and I think that's all for our session today. Stay safe and hope to see you both physically soon. Take care, guys.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.